Hi, I'm so happy that you've stopped in. I've made a background using the same shadow technique as I used on this card. I left it just as it is, a note card, no sentiment, no bling. Here's another card I made using the same technique. I first saw Christine Warner do this and I just had to give it a go. The background of this one was made with a dry embossing folder that I will use in a future video, so stay tuned. I couldn't find the stencil that I used in that first card, but however, you could use just about any stencil for this. I considered this one, but I decided to use my favorite circle stencil. Now I'm going to ink up half of a sheet of 11.5 by 12 because I will make 2 cards out of this creation. After I decide which area to use, I will start with Unicorn White ink by Hero Art. I must not have cleaned my brush before I put it away last time I used it. It was very tacky and hard to work with. When you tape your stencil down, be sure not to cover up the design. Do you think I used big enough pieces of tape here? I always do, right? So, like I said, this brush gave me a workout, and I needed to stop for some strengthening sustenance. Isn't this the cutest cup? Thankfully, I'm beyond that phase of my life now. Okay, back to work, girl. Time for the first reveal. You ready? Rats. A little too much in a few areas, but that's fixable. There's always a way to cover a mistake. Because this is a pigment ink, it takes a bit longer to dry, so I got out the heat gun. This layer needs to be dry so that the next layer does not mix in with it. To test and see if it is dry, you can sprinkle embossing powder on it. If it sticks, which it did, it's still wet. Just brush off the powder and hit it with the heat gun again. This pretty little brush I used to brush off the powder is a makeup brush that I got at Marshall's. It's so soft. I use it as a little broom on my table at times too. So we test it again, and this time it's dry. Perfect. On to the next step. So now we need to reposition the stencil, and when it's perfectly in place, then we move it up or down and to one side. Again, practice this, practice on a small piece before ruining a bigger piece. Lining this up is a little tricky. When you get it lined up and offset, retape it and then apply your colors. The reason I put the white down first is so that the oxide ink will sit on top of the white and show up. If you just put oxide on a craft cardstock or tan or any dark cardstock, it's there, but it does not pop. It doesn't show its color very well. As it is, yellow turns out not to be the best color here. For this you'll see in a minute, but I'm using mustard yellow, twisted citron, peacock feather. I love peacock feather. I don't know if I've said that in other videos, but I do. After putting down the first layer of color, I just go back and be sure I've gone over and overlapped them a little so that the transition of colors is smooth and blended. Okay, you ready for the big reveal? Now, see how close the yellow looks white on the smallest dots? Not the best choice, but look at that peacock when it comes in screen. It is so pretty. And you can see the shadows. See that little bit of white? It was just off the smidgenest. I know you couldn't see it when I first taped it down, how that it was just off a little bit, but the original card was off a lot more than that. And then compared to the feather card, the feathers was like in between the first card and this. Okay, so that's how I made the original background, but we're going to take it a step further to the next level. We're going to cover this entire piece with clear embossing powder and heat emboss it. The heat embossing will warp your paper some, but I'm not worried about that because when I make this into cards, the glue and the foam that I'm going to use should smooth it out. Right here I wanted to show you the shadowing. You can see where the embossing powder did not stick to the white, but it did stick to the oxide on the other side of the circles, and that made darker shadow actually because there was no white underneath it, so it soaked right into the cardstock. Okay, it's time to cut it into two 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 pieces. This will give me two backgrounds to work with. I was going to show you the cards that I made with these, but I decided to do that in the next video, so stay tuned. But here is a sneak peek of the two cards I created. And if you enjoyed this, please remember to give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments whether you liked it before I heat embossed it or after. Which did you like better? Let me know if you have any questions about what we've done today. I just wanted to thank you for stopping in, and come again, come often, stay a while.